Inshallah, we will begin the session with the recitation of a portion of the glorious Quran. Brother Abdul Hadi, a final-year student of BSc Information Technology, will recite the ayat number 255 from Surah Baqarah, popularly known amongst Muslims as Ayatul Kursi. And then he will read out the English translation for the recited ayat. I request Brother Abdul Hadi to start the session.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. The translation. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the self-subsisting, supporter of all. No slumber can seize Him, nor sleep. His are all things in the heavens and on earth. Who is thee can intercede in His presence except as He wills? He knows what appears to His creatures as before or after or behind them. Nor shall they compass aught of His knowledge except as He wills. His footstool extends over the heavens and the earth, and He feels no fatigue in guarding and preserving them. For He is the Most High, supreme in glory.
Jazakallahu khair, brother. Now I will be translating the ayat in Telugu, the regional language of our state, Andhra Pradesh. అనంత కరుణామయుడు అపార కృపాశీలుడు అయిన అల్లాహ్ పేరుతో. అల్లాహ్, ఆయన తప్ప ఆరాధ్య దైవం ఎవ్వడూ లేడు. సకల చరాచర సృష్టికి మూలాధారం అయిన ఆయన సజీవుడు, నిత్యుడు, అనంతుడు. ఆయన నిద్రపోడు, ఆయనకు కునుకు రాదు. భూమ్యాకాశాలలో ఉన్న సమస్తము ఆయనదే. ఆయన సమ్ముఖంలో ఆయన అనుజ్ఞ లేకుండా సిఫార్సు చేయగలవాడెవ్వడు? ప్రజల ముందు ఉన్న దానిని ఆయన ఎరుగును, వారికి గుప్తంగా ఉన్నది ఆయనకు తెలుసు. ఆయన స్వయంగా తెలియజేయాలని అభిలషిస్తే తప్ప ఆయనకున్న జ్ఞాన విశేషాలలో ఏ విషయము వారి గ్రహణ పరిధిలోకి రాదు. ఆయన రాజ్యాధికారం ఆకాశాలను భూమిని పరివేష్టించి ఉన్నది. వాటి సంరక్షణ ఆయనకు ఎంతమాత్రం అలసట కలిగించదు. ఆయన మాత్రమే సర్వాధికుడు, సర్వోత్తముడును. I request the chief guest of the session, Mr. M. Krishna Rao, in charge AP State Highways, to come on the dais. I now request our special guest, Janab Anwar Khan Sahib, Principal, Anwar Ulum Junior College, to come on the dais. I now request Swami Srikantanandaji, Director, Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence, Ramakrishna Mutt, and the main speaker on Hinduism this evening, to come on the dais. I now request Mr. Andres de Souza, Director, Henry Martin Institute, International Center for Research, Interfaith Relations and Reconciliation, the main speaker on Christianity, to come on the dais. I now request Brother Imran, President, Islamic Research and Educational Foundation, and the main speaker for Islam this evening, to come on the dais. Inshallah, the honorable guest of this session, Janab A.K. Khan Sahib, will be coming in a short while. I am Muhammad Mehboob Ali, and I would be the master of conduct for this entire session. As such, on behalf of Islamic Research and Educational Foundation, I, Muhammad Mehboob Ali, the master of conduct for this session, welcome all the dignitaries on the dais, the speakers on the topic, elders in the audience, and brothers and sisters for this historic open interfaith dialogue on the topic God according to the scriptures of Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam. A brief introduction of the dignitaries and speakers on the dais. First, to my left is Brother Imran, President IREF. Then, to my right is Swami Srikantanandaji, Director, Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence. To Brother Imran's left is Mr. Krishna Rao, in charge Andhra Pradesh State Highways and ex-Commissioner of Police, Hyderabad. And to my extreme right is Mr. Andres de Souza, Director, Henry Martin Institute, International Center for Research, Interfaith Relations and Reconciliation. And to my extreme left is Janab Anwar Khan Sahib, Principal, Anwar Ulum Junior College. Before I introduce IREF, I would like to express the purpose for conducting this open interfaith dialogue. As you might have seen in the advertisements and invitations of IREF, the caption, "Some use religion to divide, IREF uses religion to unite." With this noble thought, IREF feels that the only way of uniting the people is through imparting the knowledge of God according to the scriptures. Therefore, to unite people on one common note, that is God, IREF has organized this open interfaith dialogue with the title, God according to the scriptures of Christianity, Hinduism and Islam, inviting the scholars of the respective religions to educate the masses about the God that the scriptures speak about. Now, I would like to introduce IREF. Islamic Research and Educational Foundation was set up in Hyderabad and was registered by the government of Andhra Pradesh, India as a non-profit charitable educational society in the year 1998 and was allotted the registration number 1022 AP. The main purpose of IREF is Dawah, that is, proper presentation, dissemination, clarification, and enunciation of the truth of Islam to cognizant, innocent, ignorant, and stoic Muslims and non-Muslims. For the same, IREF conducts public lectures, symposia, debates, etc. Weekly lectures are conducted on every Sunday morning at the air-conditioned lecture hall at IREF. Separate arrangements for sisters is made, and the invitation to attend these lectures is for both Muslims and non-Muslims. At the end of the lectures, there is an open question-answer session handled by Brother Imran, President IREF. Yearly once, a Dawah training program is conducted and the fundamental Islamic education along with public speaking techniques are taught. This enables a Muslim to understand the comparative excellence of Islam, know other religions of the world, and also convince on Islamic matters. Ulama from Madina Tayyaba take regular classes on Quran and authentic ahadith almost every day for both brothers and sisters. IREF strives to fulfill the requirement of providing the teachings and understanding of Islam from authentic sources and in absolute conciliation with the ideology, concept and methodology of beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his Muslim companions, the Sahaba, Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. IREF is planning to build a school, which is the dream of many. This school will provide CBSE syllabus conciliated with Islamic subjects, conciliating in all lessons of all subjects. This will enable a child to be an alim and a CBSE student by the time he or she leaves our school, inshallah. IREF also has a reading room facility where there is a huge collection of books on Islam, Islam and comparative religion, Islam and science, etc. Our collection of books includes the religious scriptures of almost all the major religions of the world. IREF also has a large collection of video cassettes that are given on hire with amount deposited completely returned back at the time of returning of the video cassettes. The video cassettes available at our office are of world-renowned orators on Islam and comparative religion like Imran, IREF, Dr. Zakir Naik, IRF, Sheikh Ahmad Didar, IPCI, Afah Hamid, IREF, Abu Amina Bilal Phillips, Yahya Ibrahim, Jamal Badwi, etc. The collection of Urdu cassettes is of Maulana Arshad Bashir Madani, Alim at IREF, Abu Bakr bin Haqqani, regular speaker, IREF, Maulana Abdul Karim Parek, etc. People from all walks of life and from all backgrounds regularly visit IREF and watch video cassettes, read books, or discuss Dawah-related subjects with Brother Imran, Afah, Hamid, and Sharia-related subjects with Maulana Arshad Bashir Madani. Now, introduction of the chief guest, honorable guest, and the special guest on the dais. The chief guest of this session, Mr. Maddala Venkata Krishna Rao, holds a Master of Arts degree from Osmania University. He successfully underwent the Indian Police Service training in the year 1974. After working as Assistant Superintendent of Police in some districts of Andhra Pradesh between 1977-80, he assumed the position of SP Adilabad district in March 1980. He got promoted into various positions as Deputy Inspector General of Police in 1988, Inspector General of Police in 1993, Additional Director General of Police in 2001. He worked as the Commissioner of Police, Hyderabad City from February 2002 to October 2003. Presently, he is the in charge of highways for Andhra Pradesh state. The special guest with us today is Janab Anwar Khan Sahib, an educationist, a social worker, Vice President of Islamic Research and Education Foundation, and Principal, Anwar Ulum Junior College. He is a present personality, popular amongst the youth and the educated cadre of Hyderabad. Now, I request the chief guest of the session, Mr. M.V. Krishna Rao, to inaugurate the session by addressing the audience for 15 minutes. Please, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would have started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but these days I am being branded as anti-something. And incidentally, I am still the Commissioner of Police. I will be handing over charge on Monday. So, Monday 12 noon. Till then, I have to make sure that I am not in favor of any religion. Actually, I am not. I am a religious. I am not anti-religious, but I am a religious. But, you know, the powers that be. So, I am very careful. Let me first confess that I am very impressed with this audience. Itna beautiful audience, receptive, captive audience. कहाँ मिल सकता है मेरे को? तो एक खतरा है, एक डेंजर. That is, I may exceed 15 minutes, but I won't. I'll make sure that I'll complete whatever I want to say in less than 15 minutes, because I have come here late. There was a previous function which, time overlap. Let me first congratulate Brother Imran and others. We don't know much about IREF. Obviously, it's an organization with a lot of dedicated workers. The fact that on a Saturday, incidentally a second Saturday government holiday, you were able to gather this many people speaks volumes about, number one, the commitment of those who have come here, the interest that they have in religious matters, and the ability of our IREF. And I'm so happy to see such a large and sincere attendance. Initially, I thought I would deliver my address and go back to my office because I have a lot of cleaning to do. In the last 20 months, I acquired lots of things which they are piled on my table and other places. So I have to now go and decide what is to be rejected and what is to be kept, so that I can carry it with me to my new office in the Secretariat. But having seen the array of speakers that are to follow me, who are so knowledgeable, and since I don't know anything about religions at all, I'm not at all a practitioner of any religion. I'm a policeman. And a policeman in his profession cannot afford to be pro any religion. It goes against the very tenets of policing. You have to be impartial, otherwise there is no law enforcement. So we are humanistic. We have very little to do with religions. At best, we tolerate them, but we don't practice them in great depth. But having said that, I must share with you my experience for the last 20 months as Commissioner of Police. Frankly, since I was educated in a Roman Catholic school, I knew more about Christianity than about Hinduism. But during my career, I happened to have got into some degree of contact when I was Police Commissioner of Visakhapatnam. That was between 91 and 93, when there was a very active Ramakrishna mission there also. In fact, that beach is called Ramakrishna Beach. Then we have several dignitaries visiting us. So I got to know a bit of Hinduism. But during the last 20 months, God has given me an opportunity as Police Commissioner of Hyderabad to get to know Islam. Not entirely, but the surface. But from what I have observed, there appears to be hardly any difference between Christianity, Hinduism and Islam as it is preached, not as it is practiced. That's of course a lot of difference. But as it is preached, as it is available to us in the spiritual textbooks, there is hardly any difference. In fact, I don't think any of us can seriously disagree that the same God who created our Swamiji here has also created this Reverend brother here and our brother Irfan. There is no different God. It's just our ignorance because we call him by a different name. In any case, in Arabic, there is no name for God. G-O-D. What is in English? God is the Arabic Allah. Allah is not a Muslim God. Allah is God. Muslims think he is a Muslim. I don't know whether he is a Muslim because he never told me whenever he met me as to what is his religion. His religion is humanity. Allah is the same God who created all of us. Our sisters here, our brothers here, our white-skinned brothers over there, our Hindu brothers outside and inside, our Christian brothers outside and inside. So there is so much of commonality that it is indeed a shocking news that we are fighting each other in the name of religion. We are all children of the same God. There is no evidence to believe that the Islamic God is different from the Hindu God, or the Islamic God is different from the Christian God, or the Christian God is different from Hindu God. In any case, God has not been partial to any particular community or religion. There is poverty in Hinduism. There are poor people among Christians. There are poor people among Muslims also. There are rich people in Christians. There are rich people among Hindus. And there are rich people among Muslims. So what does it mean? It means that God is not partial towards any particular religion. He wants to bestow good health on some of his children. He does it irrespective of their religion. He wants to bestow happiness on some others of his children. He does so irrespective of religion. He wants to bestow wealth. That doesn't necessarily make them happy. I'm sure Swamiji here would agree. Happiness and riches don't necessarily go together. Perhaps sometimes they do. The riches of one man may make another man happy, not necessarily himself. But ill-gotten riches will never make you happy. So in this scenario, is it really worth fighting? And for whom are you fighting? Is that God, in return for all the great service you have rendered in killing the other religious people, has He ever decorated you? Has the God decorated all those killers who kill in the name of religion? Has God rewarded any of these people? There is no evidence. On the contrary, I think on the judgment day, Khayamat Ka Din, He is going to punish them. Punish them for violating His own orders. Punish them for violating His own code of conduct. What did God prescribe? If only you listen to people like Brother Imran and others. He never mentioned anything about a particular religion. He never said, do like this to your Muslim brothers, but do like this to your other brothers. He only said, do like this to your neighbors. If your neighbor happens to be of some other religion, still share whatever, whether it is a Qurbani on Eid al-Zuha or the Share Khorma on Eid al-Fitr or anything that you have, share it. That is the quintessence of Islam. Donating to the church and through the church to the fellow human beings, especially 1/10 of the income, tithe, is again one of the edicts of God. He has never said it shall not be spent on any other religious deserving poor or deserving people. It's incidental that in a locality your neighbor may be of the same religion as you. He may or may not be. If he is not, then no problem. You will still be his neighbor and share with him whatever you have. I have lived for about 5 years in Chanchalguda area because I was the head of I headed the prisons department. I was DG prisons. There's a beautiful bungalow there, 5 acres bungalow, the largest bungalow for any government servant in Hyderabad. So my neighbor, who incidentally used to run a shop, he was a Muslim. He always sent me for every Eid whatever was cooked at his house. He didn't bother whether I was a Hindu or a non-Muslim, because he practiced what Allah told him. Share your wealth with your neighbors. Share your festivities with your neighbor. So in this scenario, God, according to scriptures of Christianity, Hinduism or Islam, cannot be different. He is not a different God. It's just that we do not know the whole thing. Like the exhibition ground. It took me 5 minutes to come here because I was asked to come here and I inquired over the telephone which gate, because there are many gates. At least the Ajanta gate is a famous gate. Then there is this, is it Food Corporation of India? No. Warehousing Corporation of India gate is another gate. There are many gates. So I have to come here. I entered by the Ajanta gate, but took a left turn because somebody said go like this. I came and eventually came here. But the meeting place is the same. I am calling this near Ajanta gate. Somebody else will call it. No, it is just next to the. Do you see those godowns? Those are the Warehousing Corporation. It is silly to call this place of function near Ajanta gate. Ajanta gate is so far. This is Warehouse gate. He is also correct. I am also correct. But if you are stubborn, if you are dogmatic, if you are not willing to see the other point of view, then you are likely to end up with a lot of misery. We are all talking about the same God. But from our little knowledge, from our different perspectives, we are compelled to think that what we know is the only truth, as if what the other person is saying is not the truth. Even if what we say is the truth, it's only a portion of the truth. It is not the whole truth. And it is necessary for all of us to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And on occasions like this, certainly it will help us disabuse ourselves of wrong notions, demystify the various concepts, and put an end to the disinformation that goes on. There's a lot of disinformation that goes on in various phases of your life, especially as children. Do you know, in my school, my classmate would say, do you know why Muslims always turn to the West and pray? I said, I don't know. You know, my classmate said it's because they hate Hindus. Hindus always turn towards East because they must do whatever they want. Hindus do it opposite, they are doing it. Now I know that it's wrong. Muslims in America will be facing East because Kaaba is to their East. And those in probably North Pole or Denmark, they'll be facing South. And those in South Africa or Australia will be facing North. It's because Islam says, face Kaaba, the holiest of the shrines. So you take a compass and find out in which direction is Kaaba and face it and offer your prayer. It has nothing to do with Hinduism. In fact, when this edict was given, I don't think the people who said, whether Muhammad the Prophet or any of his followers, knew anything about Hinduism at all. It is not a dictate which is designed to be anti-Hindu. But look at what happened in schools and families and localities. They made it an anti-Hindu measure. And this is what I call disinformation. It's high time we get rid of all this disinformation and demystify the various myths that are prevailing. And I'm sure occasions like this will certainly help us get to know each other better. Of course, it's unfortunate that we have more Muslims here than others. It's obviously because the outsiders, especially the non-Muslims, still tend to suffer from a bias. They think most of the perorations here, most of the speeches here would be centered around Islam, and therefore they thought it not fit to attend. I'm sure the speeches that are to follow will throw more light on God according to scriptures of Christianity, Hinduism and Islam. I thank Brother Irfan and all his other brothers in IREF for organizing this and for inviting me. And I thank God that He made me agree to come here. Last year I missed it. I sent my deputies and they told me it's a fabulous one, aap aana tha. So I said, ye afsos ki baat hai, because normally you don't get a disciplined audience like this captive. Only thing is, I hope they are reacting to what I say. क्या समझ में आ रहा आप लोगों को मैं जो कह रहा हूं? क्योंकि यहाँ जो है अंग्रेजी में बोले तो हम अंग्रेजी में बोलना पड़ा, वरना अगर मौका दिए तो मैं उर्दू तेलुगु में बोलता था. Anyway, खुदा हाफिज, God bless you.
Thank you, sir, for your esteemed presence and addressing the audience. Before starting the main session, I would like to read out the format and the rules and regulations for this evening's proceedings. The first speaker will deliver his talk for exactly 30 minutes. Then, the second speaker will deliver his talk for exactly 30 minutes. And finally, the third speaker will deliver his talk for 30 minutes. I will be reminding the speakers on the 25th minute, and they will have to conclude their lecture within 5 minutes. The speakers will deliver their lectures adhering to the agreements signed by them, maintaining the code of conduct of the session. No one in the audience is allowed to give any kind of slogans. Instead, if they feel to appreciate a particular point of the speaker, they are only allowed to clap. If anyone tries to break the decorum of this session, he or she will be made to leave the venue. We have the police security to take care of the problem creators, if any. Thank you, sir. This open interfaith dialogue is conducted in good faith to impart the knowledge of God according to scriptures. Therefore, I request the audience to cooperate for a smooth and successful conduct of the program. If anyone needs any kind of assistance, they can contact our volunteers wearing badges moving on the ground. Sisters can contact our lady volunteers for help. The speakers should not be disturbed whatsoever during the complete speech. If anyone has a doubt, he or she should only clarify it in the open question and session after the speeches. After the speeches by the speakers, there will be the release of the most awaited book, Calling to Islam, Mission of the Prophets, authored by Brother Imran. Then we will have the open question answer session. Rules for the question answer session will be announced just before the start of the question answer session. Before I call upon Mr. Andres D'Souza to deliver his talk on Christianity, I would like to give his brief introduction. Mr. Andres D'Souza is the director of Henry Martin Institute since 1992. After completing his high school and college studies in India, he studied in Rome, Paris, Tunis, and completed his PhD at the McGill University, Montreal, Canada, on the subject of Interpretation of Concept of Revelation by Indian Muslims, a critical analysis of the religious thought of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Abul Kalam Azad, and Abul Ala Maududi. He did his diploma in Arabic and Islamic Studies from the Pontifical Institute of Arabic and Islamic Studies, Rome, Italy, a 3-year course focusing on Arabic language, Islam, and Christian-Muslim relations. He received several scholarships from different universities like Harvard University, McGill University, etc. He held different positions as a lecturer and as a visiting professor in different colleges of India. He was the chief editor of the magazine The Bulletin, now renamed as Journal of Henry Martin Institute. He is presently a guest lecturer in Utrecht University, Holland, on the subject Rise of Hindutva and Muslim Response, University of Edinburgh, Scotland, on the subject Reconciliation in the Bible and the Quran, a comparative study. He can fluently speak English, French, Italian, Arabic, Latin, Urdu, Hindi, Tulu, Konkani, and Kannada. He has a working knowledge of Persian, Greek, Spanish, German, and Tamil. He has authored several papers and publications on the topics like Hindutva and the Indian Church's response, the challenge of fundamentalism, a crisis in understanding, Muslim fundamentalism, and assessment of the term, co-authored with Diana D'Souza, Muslim-Christian relations in India, Know Your Neighbors, the Muslims, Crucifixion, Death, and Resurrection of Jesus in the Quran, Evangelization and Dialogue with Muslims, Points of Comparison between the Quran and the New Testament, and many more. I request Mr. Andres D'Souza to come up to the mic and deliver his talk for exactly 30 minutes. Mr. Andres D'Souza.
Respected friends on the dais and friends in the audience, I feel very humbled to be present before you, having heard all this praise of what I have done, and then being asked to speak about God. The topic I find of great importance in our attempt to understand each other, and that is why I feel very proud and grateful to the organizers for having given me this chance. I'm also very happy about the aim of this meeting this evening, that is to provide understanding and knowledge of each other so that we may live together in peace and harmony. For the past almost 20 years, I have been working here in Hyderabad through the Henry Martin Institute, precisely trying to do this very thing, to provide correct understanding of each other so that we may live together as brother and sister by using religion not as a tool for violence and destruction, but rather as a tool for uniting, for cementing our relationships. It is for this very purpose today I would like to reflect on God from this very idea of relationships. Because of course, when we talk about God, we can talk about God in different ways, because God is so immense and so transcending that this limited intellect, this limited knowledge that we have, is impossible to comprehend what God means. And then to describe that comprehension, to interpret that understanding of God in front of you all. Therefore, I will limit myself to this one concept, that God is God of relationships. I will begin with, because today's lecture is to be centered on the scriptures, and I am asked to reflect on the Christian scriptures, I will begin with the Bible. And beginning with the Bible, especially Genesis, the first chapter of the Old Testament, we read that God created all that exists, the heaven and earth, from nothing, out of nothing. He made heaven and earth, and that all that exists in heaven and earth. And then He created man. And then He asked this man to name the whole creation. He brought this man whom He called Adam and asked him to name all the creation. And Adam was able to name them because God had infused into him His own spirit. As we read in the Bible that God had made the form of a man, Adam, and then breathed into him of His spirit. That is why the Bible says that man is made according to the image of God. And because man is made according to the image of God, man, Adam, was able to have that profound knowledge of the whole creation, that he was able to name them one by one. And God said, that is good. And then God saw that whole His creation was happy. All the creatures were happy. However, this man who had no companion to himself was lonely, and he wasn't very happy. Then God said that we need to create a companion to this man so that he also can have companionship. He also can have relationships so that he also can relate to the other. And for this purpose, God created a companion to him, the mother Eve, who then became the prototype of mothers of the whole universe. From all of us have descended. Now this primordial couple lived in a garden. And then God had told them that you may eat whatever you like, except for fruit of one tree. You may eat whatever you like, but the fruit of one tree. And given the human nature, I suppose, Adam and Eve obeyed God in all things, but one day they were tempted. And they said, why did God not allow us to eat from this one tree? And they dared to go and eat from that fruit, that tree, that fruit which God had forbidden. And as a result of which they were punished by God. But before God could punish them, something else happened to them. You know, the Bible says that God used to come and walk with his creation, especially Adam and Eve, and then have a conversation with this primordial couple. And after this sin they had committed, this sin of disobedience, Adam and Eve felt shameful. They felt something bad, something wrong. And they went and covered themselves with leaves from the tree. And they hid under the bushes. And as usual, God came in the evening to the garden, as it was his custom, and called Adam, "Adam, where art thou?" And Adam was hiding. And why was he hiding? Because there was something he felt within himself that did not allow him to go to God. And God called him, "Adam, who told you that you are naked?" Now, different people have interpreted this first fall of man and woman differently. But I see one thing in this episode, that God is God of relationships. God was not so much concerned or affected, this is my interpretation, by the fact that Adam and Eve committed a sin and disobeyed, but rather that they withdrew themselves from God, that they went away from God. They were hiding under the bush. Instead of going and meeting God and saying, "Yes, we did something wrong, forgive us." Because God is, and we will see that in the history that follows, that God is God of forgiveness. God continues to forgive. But unfortunately, right from the beginning, we see an example set that when we commit fault, when we disobey God, we, instead of going to God and submitting ourselves to God in humble confession of the sin we have committed, we tend to go away from God. And that is much more painful for God than the sin of disobedience. This is one of the stories which I would like to place before you in order to say that God is God of relationships. The whole Bible, we can spend hours together looking at the Bible to see how God again and again comes down or sends his prophets. After Adam, God calls other prophets, Moses, Abraham, and many others, in order to remind people of God's covenant. Through Moses, for example, God gives them those 10 commandments in which God very clearly gives a code of conduct. All right, the first man and woman did not obey me. They sinned. They went away from the relationship, the friendly relationship which I was craving, for which I had created the creation. They had gone away, but I have brought them back. I have forgiven them. They are my people. And there on the Mount Sinai, God gives a covenant, means a kind of a pact. And in order to ratify this pact, God gives the 10 commandments, in which 3 of those commandments, first 3 commandments concerns God alone, that you will worship no other God but God alone, that you will not take the name of God in vain, that you will keep a particular day as dedicated for the service of God. And then the remaining 7 commandments deal with the relationship between human beings themselves, so that they may respect each other and that way relate back to God. Therefore, relationship between God and human beings is also closely tied to the relationship between human beings themselves. There cannot be a true relationship between human beings and God unless it is also at the same time closely knit with the relationship with human beings. Therefore, the very fourth commandment says, thou shalt obey, respect thy father and mother, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's goods, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, thou shalt not bear false witnesses, and so on and so forth. All these 10 commandments, therefore, lay down a code of conduct for human beings that they may continue in this good relationship between God and human beings and then among human beings themselves. As I said, in the Old Testament, there are many stories of God's intervention in the lives of people. Just to give you one example, there was a time when the people whom God had a covenant with himself had become the slaves in Egypt under the pharaohs. And these pharaohs were persecuting and ill-treating these people by making them slaves, by making them work very hard, by sometimes even killing and destroying them, their families and so forth. And in order to save them, in order to free them from their bondage, and to bring them to a promised land, God chooses a prophet under the name of Moses, who then goes to the pharaohs and asks the pharaohs to leave his people go, to free them from their bondage and go out of that bondage. And if you can follow that story of the liberation of these people, we see how God intervenes by sending, like for example, food when they are starving, like separating the water so that they can escape from the pursuing army, and then giving the promised land as they go on. So this is a very clear manifestation of God's love for his people, God's being faithful to the promise which he had made, and then trying to continue that relationship between a God and his people. As we go on in the story, we then come to the New Testament. And here we see that God loved his people. Now, I'm not saying that one particular people. God loved his people. Full stop. It is not these people or those people. God loved these people so much that God became himself a man. And that is the mystery of incarnation. We believe in the incarnation, that God loved us so much, that God saw the misery in which we were struggling. God saw that we needed some very clear example and revelation so that we can see what way we can walk, so that our path may lead us clearly to God, that we may be united with God, that this relationship which God had started from the creation of first human being, Adam and Eve, could be brought into that submit, into consolidation through God becoming man himself. And that is a profound mystery in which I, as a Christian, believe that God, for my sake, in order to show his love for me, became man. And that is where we speak about Jesus as becoming man. Jesus was born of a Virgin Mary, human like all of us, was hungry. He suffered. For example, there are a number of instances in the Holy Bible where the Bible speaks about Jesus being moved with pity when people were hungry, Jesus being moved with compassion when he saw people who had diseases and being possessed like the lepers, like those who were possessed by the demons. That Jesus was moved by compassion when women suffering from certain diseases came to him and only touched his garments and they were healed. Jesus was moved by compassion in the desert where 5,000 men and much more women and children had nothing to eat for 3 days, and he multiplied 5 loaves into many loaves so that all could eat and be satisfied. And that is kind of a compassion. That is kind of a nature of God which is revealed in and through Jesus to us, that God suffers when his creation suffers. God is so close to his creation that God almost is weeping when we weep. God is so moved by compassion when he sees that there are people who are hungry, that there are people who are being pressed and persecuted by others, that God comes to their liberation and through their salvation. And that is the other concept, very important concept in Christianity, that God, this relating God, this God who sustains us by giving us all that we need, is also a God of liberation, that God liberates us. And this particular aspect of God, that God is God of liberation, is manifested in the life and teachings of Jesus. And I can give you many stories of that, but I will restrict myself to just one or two. One of those stories which Jesus himself tells is comparing God to a father. And very often Jesus addresses God as my father. And this story is of a man, a father, who has 2 sons. And one of his sons, the younger son, quarrels with his father and says, "Father, give me all that is my due." And he takes his due and he goes and squanders what he had received. He spends everything that his father had given him by living a very bad life. And then finally, when all the money was gone, he doesn't know what to do. So he goes and becomes a slave to one person who rears pigs. And he guards the pigs. And in the pigsty, he has to feed the pigs morning and evening. And then there he reflects that here he is feeding these pigs and he himself is hungry. He has no food to eat. And then he recollects that in his father's house, even the servants eat much better food than he himself does. And therefore he says, I am going to go back to my father's house. And I know that my father will receive me. And when we turn back to the father, and this father, from the day that his son had left, goes on waiting for him. He goes, climbs a hill, and then he's looking for, where is my son gone? And then, on that day when the son comes back, this father sees him from far and then rushes towards him. He embraces him and kisses him and cries, my son, my son. You know, my brothers and sisters, this is kind of love that God has for us. God is God of relationships. And in relationships, when we talk about relationship, there is no more any kind of a barrier. No matter how great sinners we are, God is forgiving. God forgives us just as this old father was willing to forgive completely his son. He took him back. He had a feast for him. And then there was a celebration that his lost son had come back. Now just one more story in order to illustrate the point I am making about how God is towards his creation, that God is God of love, God of compassion. God gives as he wishes from his bounty. And this story connects me to the very main theme of the Gospels. God loved the world so much that he gave his only beloved Son. Now the terms which I use may confuse especially my Muslim brothers and sisters. I know they do confuse when we speak about God having a Son. God who is so transcendental, so immense, so beyond all our human terms. How can we call God as Father even? You see, that is beyond. Those terms which we use are human terms because we have only human terms to experience and then express that experience in human words. So we don't have any other terms. When I say that God loved the world so much that he gave his only Son, what I mean is that God became so involved with his creation that he became exactly like us. He had human flesh. He had human blood and bones. He felt our misery. He felt our sorrows. That is kind of a God. And this God, who saw through his own eyes what was happening to his creation, offered his own life for our sake. And that is the story of the crucifixion and death of Jesus. We as Christians believe that Jesus lived a short life, that he taught about God and the way to go back to God. And then when his time had come, he allowed himself to be captured, to be brought before the rulers of this world who condemned him because they said he had blasphemed. And then he was put on a cross. And there, after suffering a terrible agony, after going through the same or perhaps even more pain, bodily pain, finally Jesus died on the cross. And then he was buried. And then on the third day he rose again. And he seated at the right hand of the Father. This, my friends, is what I understand from our scriptures. This is my faith. This is what I believe to be revealed to me throughout the history of the Bible. For me, Bible is the Word of God revealed and revealing. Even today when I read this scripture, God speaks to me through this scripture and reminds me of the intervention which God has made in my life in order that I may know what God is. Of course, we cannot know what God is as He is, only in an image, so that I may walk in the path which is right path, which will lead me to God, that I may one day be united with this my God, who I believe is not only somewhere there, but who is somewhere right here as I speak to you, all around us, all over us. It is because of this presence of God who reveals Himself to me that I am called to go out and to serve my brothers and sisters just as God served me, just as God gave His life for my sake, that I am to give my life for my brothers and sisters, so that together we may remember God's love and together we may live a harmonious and peaceful life. And that is the work of the institute where I work, that we may not to look at the distinction and division, though distinction and divisions and differences are important, that we need to understand them, accept them and respect them, but they should not become a barrier for us in our attempt to build relationships of friendship, of love, of respect.
Inshallah, we will begin
Relationships of friendship, of love, of respect and of care. And that is what we would like to see that we do at the Institute, Henry Martin Institute, and that is what I would like to see that we all do together, my brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for giving me this occasion.